My name is Captain Amelia Grant, though no one in my family ever uses that title. To them, I have always been the quiet one, the girl with the safe government job, hidden behind a desk somewhere in the Pentagon. They never asked what I really did there, and I never volunteered the truth. It was easier to let them believe their version of me, easier to nod, smile, and disappear into the background. That illusion ended the day of my father's funeral. I remember standing in that dimly lit chapel, surrounded by lilies and whispers, feeling the same familiar weight of dismissal. My sister Cassie had made herself the center of attention, just like always. Every tear she shed seemed perfectly rehearsed, every hug carefully positioned for the crowd. She was radiant in her grief, and everyone saw her as the strong daughter. No one looked at me for long. They never did. But that day was different. I wasn't there as the forgotten daughter. I was there as an intel officer on compassionate leave. I stood quietly in my black dress, the edges sharp, the fit precise, my hands still. Every movement was deliberate, every breath controlled. I had spent years learning how to appear invisible, but invisibility can be a weapon when you know how to use it. I didn't feel anger that morning. I felt clarity. The kind that settles over you after years of being misunderstood. I watched the people who had built their opinions of me out of convenience, not truth. They didn't know the sleepless nights, the classified briefings, the decisions that had shaped missions halfway around the world. They couldn't imagine that the woman they overlooked was someone who had saved lives without anyone ever knowing her name. As the service began, I could feel the tension in the air. Cassie stood near the podium, clutching her speech, performing sorrow. I stood near the back, silent and still. They had no idea that this would be the last time they underestimated me, that before the day was over, they would finally see who I really was. The chapel was heavy with the scent of lilies and something colder. I moved quietly along the back wall, a shadow among mourners, unnoticed, but watching everything. Cassie stood near the front, dressed in designer black, her hair perfectly styled. She dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief, pausing just long enough to be seen. Her performance was flawless. She greeted old colleagues of our fathers with solemn nods, held our mother's hand with gentle theatrics. Everything about her presence said, "I'm the daughter who held this family together." She glanced back at me once. Not long. Just enough to let me know she saw me and still didn't see me. Her smile was tight, practiced, and full of pity. I returned nothing, a subtle buzz against my palm. I looked down at my phone, angled low. One name, one word. A short message from my husband, Major Leo Grant. Team is here, back 3 rows. Got your 6. Leo. He was sitting near the front with my mother, playing the role of the supportive son-in-law. His team, his entire 12-man Special Forces unit, was here. They weren't in uniform, just dark suits, scattered among the pews like ordinary mourners. They weren't here on a mission. They were here for Leo. They were here for me. The air in the room thickened. Conversations dipped as the minister stepped up to speak. I scanned the pews, not for friends or family, but for a position. I felt the presence of my team, our team, before I saw them. I recognized the stance, the precision in posture, the way their eyes moved. I wasn't here to grieve. I was here to endure. I learned early that in our house, visibility meant value. Cassie was loud, charming, and full of opinions. I was the quiet kid with books and questions. When Cassie got her real estate license, my father toasted her at dinner with champagne. When I, a young cadet at the academy, published my first paper on asymmetric warfare, I brought it home hoping for just a nod. I found him in the den, watching the news. The TV was loud. "Dad?" I said, holding the bound journal. My paper on insurgent network theory was published in the Strategic Studies Quarterly. He glanced at it, then at the TV. "That's nice, Amelia. Sounds complicated." He didn't take it. He didn't ask what it was about. He just turned back to the news. "But Dad," I tried again, my voice smaller, It's a big deal at the academy." He finally looked at me, his eyes tired. "Amelia, That's great. But can't you see I'm busy? Your sister is coming over. She's about to close on the new condo. I stood there for a full minute. He never looked away from the TV again. I put the journal back in my bag. He never asked about it. I stopped trying to shine for them. I started learning how to build power where they couldn't see it. My family always assumed I worked some entry-level desk job. That version of me made them comfortable, so I let them have it. The truth was quieter. I was a captain, a senior intelligence analyst. My call sign was Havoc. Leo understood. As the leader of a Tier 1 unit, he knew the pressure. Our marriage worked because we met each other in the middle of the mission. I wasn't just his wife. I was his strategist. The person he called before every critical op, not for comfort, but for clarity. I remember one mission in particular. Leo's team was tasked with capturing a high-value target in a fortified compound. Command had given the green light based on satellite intel. I was in an ops room thousands of miles away, my eyes scanning 3 different data streams. Something was wrong. Leo, this is Havoc, I said over the secure comms. Intel is bad. I'm seeing ghost signals. The heat signatures are synthetic. It's a trap. The line was quiet for a second. Then the Joint Ops commander's voice cut in. Captain, your input is noted. Major Grant, proceed as planned. The window is closing. I watched the tactical feed, my heart in my throat. Leo's team was 30 seconds from the breach point. Leo, listen to me. I said, breaking protocol. Do not breach that gate. I repeat, abort the breach. Reroute to the north drainage culvert. It's the only way in they didn't cover. I'm seeing a heavy machine gun nest aimed at your primary. Havoc, stand down, the commander yelled. Major, you have a direct order. Silence. Leo's team was frozen, waiting. I held my breath. Then Leo's voice came back, calm and clear. Roger. Havoc. Team. Reroute. North culvert. Move. They rerouted. 30 seconds later, the main gate they were supposed to breach exploded in a massive IED blast. Exactly where the machine gun nest I'd spotted opened up. I didn't save them from a firefight. I saved them from an execution. I had saved the lives of every man sitting in those back pews. They didn't just respect me because I was Leo's wife. They respected me because they were alive. At home, I was invisible. In the field, I was essential. Cassie approached me near the entrance as the pews began to fill. Her heels clicked softly on the marble. She wore concern like an accessory, her voice syrupy and low, as she placed a hand on my arm. Amelia, I'm so glad you're here, she said, her eyes scanning my face for any crack. I know this must be so hard for you. You were always so sensitive. I kept my gaze level and gave her a quiet nod, saying nothing. Her fingers tightened slightly, just enough to test my reaction, and her other hand dropped casually to her purse. The angle was perfect. Too perfect. I could feel it. The tiny black lens of her phone's camera, nestled behind a flap, angled to capture my face. She wanted a scene, a breakdown, something she could replay later to prove I was the fragile one, the one unfit to handle our father's estate. Cassie always played 2 games, one for the audience and one for control. She gave me a sympathetic smile and whispered, Mom is a wreck. I need you to hold it together today, okay? Dad would have wanted you to sit this one out. I'll take care of the eulogy. I blinked slowly, letting the silence stretch. Then I said, calm and measured, of course. Ugh. Her smirk told me she thought she'd won. As she turned back toward the front, I slipped my hand into my coat pocket. My phone buzzed again, this time from Leo. She's recording you. The message didn't spark anger. Instead, everything inside me slowed. My heart rate settled into a calm rhythm. Years of training had rewired my responses. In chaos, I became surgical. I didn't need to send a code. I just needed to make a choice. Cassie was still playing the old game. Smiles, manipulation, control. I had brought something else entirely. I sent a simple text back to Leo, who was now seated in the front row with my mother. "I'm done. I'm leaving after the minister speaks." It wasn't a request for help. It was a statement. I wouldn't let Cassie have her scene. I would simply disappear, just like they always expected me to. But Leo had other plans. For a full second, nothing happened. The minister's voice droned on, reciting a passage about legacy. Cassie, having delivered her perfect eulogy, dabbed her eyes, her performance complete. She thought I'd stay silent because I had nothing left to say. Then Leo stood. No sound, no announcement, just a quiet, deliberate rise to full height from the front row. Heads turned. Slowly at first, then more sharply. My mother looked at him, confused. "Leo? What is it?" Leo didn't look at her. He turned, his gaze passing over Cassie, and looked directly at me in the back of the chapel. 2 rows behind him, another man in a dark suit stood. Then 2 more along the far wall. Then 3 in the back right next to me. In less than 5 seconds, 12 men were on their feet. No one spoke. No one moved. They stood shoulder-width apart, hands clasped behind their backs. It wasn't a military stance, not exactly, but it radiated precision, control, intent. The silence grew dense, thick like fog settling over water. The minister faltered, his voice catching. A single collective gasp rippled through the room. Conversations stopped. Breaths held. All eyes shifted away from the pulpit, away from the flowers. They turned toward me. I was no longer the quiet girl in the back. I was the center of a silent storm. Cassie's phone slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. She didn't even blink. Her eyes were locked on the men, on me, on what she couldn't understand. Power had just shifted without a word. And everyone in that chapel felt it, not with sound, but with presence. With stillness so complete, it roared louder than any shout ever could. Cassie didn't speak. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Her eyes flicked from one man to the next, trying to find a pattern. But there was nothing, just silence, just presence. She looked toward our mother, expecting backup. But Mom wasn't looking at her. She was staring at me. Her expression was different now, like she was seeing me for the very first time. She didn't look proud. She looked stunned, as if every memory of me had been rewritten in an instant. The daughter she thought was fragile had just commanded an entire room without saying a word. Leo stepped forward. 2 precise strides. Then he stood beside me. Not touching, not speaking. Just there. A shield that needed no armor. He scanned the room, his gaze calm and clear. Then, in a low voice that carried through the stillness, he said, "We're here to honor a patriot's legacy." Oh, that was all. But it was everything. Every person in that room heard it. They understood exactly who he meant. Cassie lowered her head, not in grief, in defeat. The camera was off. The performance was over. I didn't gloat. I didn't speak. I just stood, still and centered, with the quiet power of someone who no longer needed anyone's permission to be seen. 6 months later, my office sat high in one of the inner rings of the Pentagon. The nameplate on the door read Major Amelia Grant, Director, Strategic Analysis, Special Projects. Each morning started the same. A black coffee, a quiet scan of overnight reports, and a short walk down a long hallway to brief leaders who shaped national policy. In those rooms, I was no longer questioned. I was consulted. The weight I used to carry of needing to be seen by my family was gone. It had dissolved somewhere in that chapel. Leo waited for me in the corridor that afternoon, leaning casually against the wall with that familiar look of pride in his eyes. We didn't need words. Our peace was built on something stronger than conversation. As we walked side by side, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was Cassie. The name alone felt distant. The message was short. "Amelia, I'm sorry. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a few quiet seconds. Not angry, not moved. just still. It was like reading a line in a story I had already finished. Without hesitation, I pressed and held the message. Then I tapped archive. No reply, no energy spent, just silence. Leo glanced at me, his brow lifting slightly in silent question. I gave him a small shake of the head and kept walking. He nodded once, understanding completely. We moved down the hall together, two people shaped by the same storms. Strong, not because we shouted, but because we no longer needed to. Silence isn't always absence. Sometimes it's the final word, the strongest kind, the one that means you've truly moved on. Family used to mean something narrow to me. It meant blood. But as I got older, that definition started to feel smaller. I kept trying to belong in a place that never made space for me. The truth is, I found my real family in the silence between missions. In briefing rooms where every word mattered. They weren't born into my life. They chose to stand in it. Men and women who trusted me not because I was loud, but because I was right. I remember that night, after Leo's team was safe, one of the operators radioed back just 2 words. "Nice work, Havoc." That was it. No ceremony, but it meant more to me than any praise I'd ever heard at a family table. In this world, love looks different. It looks like someone is checking your 6 without being asked. It looks like Leo standing at my side in that chapel, not needing to say anything, because presence was enough. My family is built on loyalty and clarity. It's made up of people who see each other fully, even in the dark. If you're still trying to find your people, the ones who see your worth without needing to be convinced, don't give up. Sometimes the strongest families are the ones we build ourselves. If you've ever felt like the invisible one at the table, I want you to know something. You are not alone. And you are not powerless. I spent years trying to earn love in a place that couldn't see me. And the day I stopped trying, I found something stronger. I found peace. I found purpose. I found people who respected me not because of my last name, but because of my actions. If you're carrying the weight of being misunderstood, I see you. Your story matters. And your strength may be quiet, but it's there. Take your time, choose your moment, and when you're ready, let them see who you really are. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove to yourself that you never needed their permission to be powerful. If this story resonates with you, I'd love to hear yours. Leave a comment, share what you've overcome, because sometimes our biggest turning points come from someone else saying, "Me too." Thanks for listening. Keep going. You're stronger than they know.